Welcome to another edition of After Party. We're live here on the East Coast because it's 10 p.m. on a Wednesday. Where else would we be? And where else will we be, of course? Indefinitely, that is the question. Now, Bridget Phetasy is our guest today. I'll bring her in just one moment. I'm so excited to have Bridget here because I follow her work really closely, and she has some of the most interesting perspectives on current events. So really excited to get to Bridget, and we have a lot to talk about. New polling from the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression coming after the brutal assassination of Charlie Kirk still finds really unacceptable levels of college students who say that words can be violence. And these numbers are well worth breaking down, especially in light of an Atlantic article that came out about this article has been buzzing all over the internet. We're going to break it down, but it shows how elite schools, so Ivy League schools in particular, are being overwhelmed by students who are asking for disability accommodations to the point where the rooms with the disability accommodations are so full, they're even more distracting than the normal classrooms that aren't, just for people who are needing extra time on tests or areas where they can focus better. So there's so much to get to. There's more Olivia Nuzzi. We might as well just rename the show to the Tim Miller Clip Show because we have more Tim Miller clips coming at everyone. Obviously, a little bit of Sabrina Carpenter, a little bit of Ellen, and I'm going to talk about a new report, actually in DropSite, from my friend Ryan Grimm, his website, a new report over there showing that Sir Keir Starmer's government, well, I shouldn't say his government, his political apparatus was actually behind at the time, it was a very high-profile effort to suppress The Federalist, where I worked then, but also places like Breitbart. New revelations, we're going to go through all of it. Before we get to Bridget, a fresh start is possible. Debt can feel like it's getting worse every month, but that only continues if nothing changes. PDS Debt has already helped hundreds of thousands of people rewrite their financial story and take back control, and your turn can start right now. If you're struggling with credit cards, personal loans, or medical bills, PDS Debt creates personalized options to help you get out of debt. They look beyond the numbers to understand your situation and build a plan that's designed specifically for you. There's no minimum credit score, and their entire mission is to help you save more, pay off debt faster, and finally put money back where it belongs, in your pocket. They're A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, have thousands of 5-star Google reviews, and hold a 5-star rating on Trustpilot because their approach works. And the longer you wait, the more interest and fees pile up. The best time to start was yesterday, so the next best time is right now. So if I needed a product like this one, it is what I would use. Do not wait another month. Change your story in 30 seconds. Get your free personalized assessment and the best option for you at pdsdebt.com/Emily. That's pds.com/Emily. pds.com/Emily. All right, as a reminder, everyone, make sure to subscribe. I'm so bad at plugging the subscribe option, but subscribe on YouTube, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. It helps us so much, and you can always send an email to me, literally to me, at emily@devilmaycaremedia.com, because on Thursdays, I tape our Friday happy hour episodes, which hit the feed right around happy hour time on Friday when you should be socializing and not listening to podcasts. But best case scenario, you're listening to it on your commute. That's what I'll tell myself, or while you're cleaning the house or hanging out on Saturdays and Sundays. So make sure Emily@devilmaycaremedia.com or send a message to @AfterPartyEmily on Instagram. Without further ado, though, let's bring in Bridget Phetasy, who is host of Dumpster Fire. Her Substack is Beyond Parody with Bridget Phetasy. Bridget, I am so happy to have you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I brought shades and my fume just in case I needed to match your vibe.
I still have it over here because I
vape. I even brought, look, I can go.
Oh, I don't have my glasses.
Come on, I thought we were doing this.
See, well, we are because you have the glasses and I have the vape. So what we're really doing is
I've got fume too.
Oh, damn it.
I don't smoke, but I was like, I'm rocking with her tonight.
Damn, those glasses are way cooler. I wish I had used those. Those are better.
I feel like it kind of has an Olivia Nuzzi vibe, actually, to these glasses.
That's what I was just gonna say. That's you're nailing it.
Where's my Vanity Fair profile?
I'm so excited to talk about Nazi with you because I've been trying to stop talking about this story because it literally does not have anything to do with anybody's life other than Olivia Nazi's. Like, it affects nobody. It is such an inside baseball media story, but it keeps on metastasizing and becoming even more and more interesting by the day, despite being less and less useful by the day. So anyway, we're going to get to that in a second. But one thing I wanted to start with, Bridget, is if you could talk a little bit about your own kind of personal story. I don't usually do this, but you have such a, like, you're writing for The Spectator. And you know, if you have to, you could have done it easily, could have done it the whole show. But like, you're writing for The Spectator, you have your Substack, you're a podcaster. How did you end up in this place in your life? Like, what led you to having this media career?
I mean, I could take this whole entire hour to tell that story. I really should. It should be a book. I always wanted to be a writer. We'll start there. And then in 2013, I quit drinking and smoking weed and pretty much all the great drugs. And then I got addicted to the best drug, which is Twitter/X. And in that process, I found my way to editors. And then I was able to get my first freelance writing gig at Playboy. And that led to a weekly column there. And then I started pushing back against some of the craziness I was seeing on the left. And I was joking that I would write about the hypocrisy of left-wing females, but nobody would publish it. And then Ben Dominance actually was like, oh, I would for the Federalist. And then I wrote something for the Federalist, and I didn't, mind you, Emily, I knew nothing about conservative media. I knew nothing about anything. I did not know anything about the Federalist. And so I was just excited I was freelance, so I was excited to get paid for more writing. I was, living very much paycheck to paycheck, and posted it very excitedly in my Facebook and online. And people were like, I'm done with you. You wrote for the Federalist. And I had no idea. And that was kind of the beginning of the end at Playboy. And
the idea of a Federalist column killing your Playboy career is so poetic. I can't even begin.
And then I started my podcast in 2018, Walk-Ins Welcome. And this is an interview show, which I would love to have you on, actually. And then you're a very requested guest. And then
I love that show.
And then I started writing at Spectator, actually 7 years ago. And around the same time. And then in 2019, I started Dumpster Fire from my garage because I felt like people, just to make fun of the dumpster fire news cycle that we were all living through. And one thing led to another. And then I continued doing stand-up comedy. I got married. I had a child. I moved to Austin. And now I have, I guess, 3 or 4 shows and a column, and I still do stand-up comedy and a toddler, and it's awesome. Like my Substack where I write, it's all kind of beyond my wildest dreams, to be honest. But it's been a long, winding, a little bit financially insecure road because we are still completely independent. I don't have foreign money or investment money.
Right. I'm amazed how you compressed all of that because I think it gives people a flavor of why your commentary comes from such a different place. And actually, I wasn't planning on talking about this because you mentioned getting addicted to Twitter, I wanted to play this clip that's just starting to go viral right now as we sit down of Ben Shapiro talking about how the algorithms on X are destroying America. And Bridget, I don't mean to set you up to explain why your addiction with X is destroying America, because I share your addiction. So let's take a listen here and I'll get your reaction.
This is my informed view. Sounds like it should go.
Yeah, I mean, there we go. Don, look at us come
He's
together.
He's sitting next to Don Lemon. Why not?
So the reason I say this is because the TikTok and X algorithms in particular program for virality.
Yes.
And so they are programming for what is the strongest response, the strongest emotional response. Absolutely can be manipulated by outside actors. You've actually seen quite a bit of this on both TikTok as well as X. But people who are then in the real world use that as a substitute for polling. For example, so you see politicians, and if they get a lot of retweets, they think what they're saying is popular, and then they do more of it. And so you'll see it bleed over into the real world. Trends that you would never get if you just walked around and talked to normal humans suddenly start popping up when you talk around with normal humans because they've been watching it online and it's been really, really pushed. And so, when people say, how do we get back to normal? My first recommendation is to do something that actually is the opposite of what our industry should be saying, which is get offline. Like actually turn off your phone and go to a place with actual human beings and have conversations with those people. And, this is where I make my non-religious religious pitch. Everybody needs a form of Sabbath. You should get off your phone on Friday night. You should get back on your phone on Saturday night and just be completely disconnected from everything that's going on and be in a place where everybody who is, bonding over values and over shared things. That the more online we are, the more polarized we are. And I think that's been the opposite of the way that we've viewed politics for decades in the country. The more informed you are, the better the electorate's going to be. And it turns out that because our informational ecosystem is so polluted and because it is actually programming to the id inside all of us, what that means is that probably the more time you're spending on X or the more time you're spending on TikTok, maybe the less informed you are and also the more polarized.
All right, so I'll stop it there because it goes on and he makes a lot of the same points. And then Don Lemon, who I inadvertently referred to as Dan Lemon for some unknown reason, but I like it. Don/Dan Lemon jumps in to talk about how wise he is and how much his fans love him. But I want to just pick up on that last point, Bridget, where Ben says this is programmed to our ids. It's kind of like the touch grass thing is kind of a cliche. Is that right or wrong? What is this getting right? What is this getting wrong from your perspective as somebody whose kind of gateway drug was actually X?
Yeah, I have so many mixed feelings about this because I think that it is, I always say this about X, it is influential. It's not necessarily representative. So it does behave like a giant think tank where we all in media and in Hollywood, all these different fields get to battle it out in the Thunderdome. And it used to be a little bit better, I think, than it is now. I don't think that just allowing anybody to monetize was great for X because now you can easily get these foreign influences that are just rage baiting Americans. We just did a dumpster fire on this, how fake Americans are destroying America. And there's just a lot of that going on. And if you're somebody like you or me who is observing the thing I love about X is you can observe the discourse from 30,000 feet and see very quickly, like, all right, here's what the libertarians are saying on the right and the left somewhat. Here's what the far left is saying. Here's what the far right's saying. Here's what the centrists or the classical liberals, like, all very quickly in one. If you have a good list or a couple of lists, you can get a pretty quick overview of where everybody's sitting on one topic or all topics. If you're not viewing it that way and you're just partaking in it as somebody who's using X, or maybe you just are new to it, you can't notice necessarily like a foreign body that's starting to influence the discourse. I think people who view it regularly are pretty attuned to like, oh, here's this mantra that we're suddenly hearing everywhere. Something we can kind of at least I like to think that a lot of the time people in media can recognize astroturfing as it's happening. We see it in mainstream media too, when you start seeing politicians and CNN talking heads and everybody has that like same weird buzz phrase that suddenly everyone's using that
disinformation.
No one's ever heard before. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then you see it too from like these foreign influences, or you'll see the same version of like a tweet or a comment everywhere. But I don't know that the average person is going to be able to recognize that. And I always try and tell people, I'm like, you're probably fighting with a 12-year-old or like a Pakistani on Twitter. Don't waste your time doing it.
Why not both?
Or both. A 12-year-old Pakistani.
Probably more often than not.
And I do think it is. I hate the like pearl clutching about it though, too, because as I mentioned, all of my opportunities, I wouldn't be here without X. Twitter gave me wings. Truly, it led me to every single editor that I've had. It's given me more opportunities than I can count. It is my favorite of all the social medias. It comes very naturally to me. I like that you can be more of a writer on there than Instagram is very visual and it feels very fake to me. And Twitter, you can just be a kind of grumpy piece of. Can you swear on here?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, you can be a grumpy piece of shit on Twitter, and people will be like, "Cool, we get it." You can be depressed. You can be whatever, and I do think that Elon, again, double-edged sword. Elon buying it, great for free speech. Absolutely, people were getting shadow banned, and there were things that were happening. And now with monetizing, I don't know that that's tipped the scale into a place where it's like, okay, well, now we've got all these. I used to be able to also know if somebody was who they said they were, and now I don't know that. And I feel like that is a big problem on a platform like X. If it is going to be the kind of global town square, you kind of knew people who you could somewhat trust that they were who they said they were. And now you can just be anonymous and have a blue check and be like, I'm America first, and you're not at all from America. You might love America and be America first, but you are not. And that kind of stuff is dividing people. I have no expertise or interest in TikTok at all. I went on for 7 seconds just to see what it was like. And I was like, this will melt your brain. And I just never went on it again. I just don't. I know that but people will say the same thing. It's really like been great for them and that they've made communities and they learn a lot. But I also will say that short form content is making normies and people who don't really read feel like they do know things because they saw, somebody do a 5-minute video about it, not even 5 minutes, like a 50-second video about it. And I get a lot. I was joking about this, especially around like when everyone was kind of losing their minds around like the Israel-Palestine stuff. And people would come to me and they'd be like, Bridget, I hope you're on the right side of this. Candace Owens said, and like it's like the minute they open their mouth and say that, I feel like I'm in a zombie apocalypse and someone's like pulling up their sleeve in my party. And I'm like, oh no, you got bit too. We're going to have to put you in a cage in the other room.
I was actually thinking about that recently in the context of why there's so many, like constantly we're playing 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon from Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes with everyone, but it's not just anti-right. Like that goes in the other direction too, where people on the left are being, like they're getting demands to renounce their association with this person and this person. And honestly, it kind of makes me think that the algorithmic programming has trained us to recognize that's a potent partisan attack. And so then it just became part of the normal discourse, which was, oh, this person is friends with somebody who's really close to this person. We have to constantly hound them about what that other person is saying. And it's weird because it's a super emotive thing that gets clicks, like generates a lot of outrage and conversation. But is it natural? I mean, is that what we would naturally be talking about without the algorithm? I don't know, Bridget.
This is a weird thing, too, because I see this happening on the right where, look, I don't think anyone is owed a platform. Like, I just don't feel like you need that. Does that mean you don't platform somebody? I think it's like up to your discretion and talk to whoever you want. And it's weird to see the right kind of tone policing people on the right because that clearly didn't work for the left.
Right.
Like we just came out of 10 years of the left being like, you can't talk to that guy and you can't talk to that guy. And it's like, okay, talk to them. But also don't expect me to not make judgments about your I can now in the same way that when someone was like, yeah, men can compete in women's sports, okay? I would be like, all right, I can kind of dismiss most of what you have to say about everything. And I can make those same judgments about people on the right who decide to have conversations with people that are insane and ridiculous. So you also have to, sorry, you're going to suffer consequences for that stuff. I get to make my decision. You can talk to whoever you want, and I get to decide you are an idiot. Like, this is how this works. I maintain the exact same position I maintained through all of the last decade, which is, sure, talk to whoever you want, say whatever you want, and I get to say you're an idiot, and I don't want to listen to you anymore. That's just how this works. But it is weird, too, to see the right kind of falling into the same identity victimhood stuff that they've been, like, yelling about. They're like, oh, everyone's being mean to me. I'm being canceled. I'm like, you're not being canceled. People are just calling you out for people that you're talking to because, like, they don't like them. It's not like they're saying, I'm not going to listen to you anymore. They have that's their prerogative. Like, I don't think they're saying that you should be deplatformed and you should be silenced and you should be canceled. That I think there's a lot of people who try to, like, split that hair where they're saying, oh, they're saying that they don't like who I'm talking to, and so now I'm being silenced. No, you're not. They're just criticizing you.
I just feel like the algorithms train a performativity into us.
Of course.
That's almost, it's unnatural. Let me your point about bots made me want to share this essay you wrote for The Spectator recently. This is on Dead Internet, basically, but your headline is "The Internet is dying and so are we." This was from July, but you shared it again just in the last couple of days, and it's, always fresh and worth revisiting, but it gets to the point that you were just making about the bots, that some of the stuff is, like, undetectable, but in a weird way you can sense it. Can you just talk to us a little bit about what you wrote here?
Yeah, that piece was basically about how they're finding that, it's pretty soon it's just going to be bots talking to bots commenting on AI. Like, there's this theory that the internet is going to be dead, meaning that there will be more bots and AI talking to one another than actual humans who are online. And now with AI, I think it's even harder because the images that people can create and become a completely different person, or they can generate a whole AI chatbot that isn't even real, that's working full time for them at OnlyFans. You won't even know if somebody's a human or not. And that is kind of the idea behind the dead internet theory, is that once and I think we're kind of already approaching this, where I saw some statistic the other day where it just keeps going up, where it's like 60% of the content is AI generated and 40% is just human, and they're just scraping everything and making more content that's AI generated and bot generated. And it's unfortunate that there is not enough media literacy for people to be able to recognize this. And I think one of the biggest problems we have in America in general right now is that we need to be teaching media literacy. Even someone like you and I should do some kind of fun show just as a public service that teaches media literacy and how to recognize these things, so that normies, and not to mention just normies, we had to call all of our boomer relatives and explain to them, like, they automatically cannot trust anything. If someone calls them and says it's us, that we're in distress, they can't trust any email. We have had to sit all of them down and say, automatically assume anything you hear is fake and call us directly and confirm. But because they don't know, they're gonna take all 8.4 trillion. What is it? What do the boomers have? It was like $84 trillion worth of assets. They're gonna take all of it from the boomers. all these scam artists and bots.
This is the wealth redistribution.
Oh, yeah, it's going to go back to Pakistan.
Well, okay, so there's a lot more to talk about. And on that point, I mean, the rate of change is just so rapid now that we are becoming the boomers. Like by next year, you 100%. And I will be boomers, right? Like in terms of understanding what's AI, what's not, and people will natively be speaking this language of AI and all of that. That's, unless we work really hard, going to be foreign.
I'm Gen X, and they're already calling me a boomer. I'm already a boomer, and I've just accepted it. I actually don't care. Here's the thing about being Gen X. I don't want the younger audience, guys. I don't care about you. I truly don't. Good luck to you. I hope you enjoy your lobotomy from AI. I will be over here with my garden. I'm not like chasing. I don't need so much of media now is sad older people trying to sound based for young people. Yes. And I'm sorry, but that is embarrassing. You are in your 60s trying to be cool. Calm down. You're trying to be like, oh, look at me. These like based young kids like me. I'm like, you guys, these young base kids, they're going to be boomers soon, too.
And we don't know how much they actually really like you. Okay, lots more to get to. Olivia Nuzzi is going to come up right after this break, I promise. So stick around. But first, over the years, I've been clear about this. I'm not just pro-birth, I am pro-life. And being pro-life means standing with mothers not only before their baby is born, but long after. And that is exactly why I partner very proudly with Preborn. Preborn doesn't just save babies, they make motherhood abundantly possible. They provide free ultrasounds and share the truth of the gospel with women in crisis, and then they stay with real practical help, including financial support for up to 2 years after the baby is born. This is what true Christ-centered compassion looks like, not just for the baby, but for the mother too. And here's where you can make a difference. Just $28 provides a free life-saving ultrasound, one chance for a mother to see her baby. And when she does, she's twice as likely to choose life. Preborn is trying to save, get this, 70,000 babies this year. So don't just say you're pro-life, live it, help save babies and support mothers today. Go to preborn.com/Emily or call 855-601-2229. That's preborn.com/Emily. We're back with Bridget Phetasy, host of Dumpster Fire and author of the Substack Beyond Parody with Bridget Phetasy. Bridget, we teased an Olivia Nuzzi block, and at this point we have to deliver on the Olivia Nuzzi block. So Olivia Nuzzi is getting panned. All of the quote mainstream publications are trashing her book, which of course makes me kind of curious if I might like it as much as loath as I am to consider that possibility. But she went on with Tim Miller of The Bulwark and talked a little bit about her ex-fiance, Ryan Lizza, who is now writing, I think, what is the least masculine act of journalism I've seen ever. The series dishing on their relationship in ways that are borderline pornographic, emotionally pornographic. And he thinks newsworthy, but it's also so hard to verify because he's so close to the story and who knows who's editing and fact checking, whatever. So let's go ahead and roll this clip of Olivia Nuzzi talking about Ryan Lizza to Tim Miller of The Bulwark.
He has presented his harassment of me, right, in this humiliation campaign as some sort of crusade that's in the public interest, right? That somehow the country will be saved by him writing some combination of fan fiction and revenge porn, right? And he alluded to or claimed that he was in possession of some explosive information somehow from me, unclear, that related to the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. And sick. Right. I was just thinking, let's say if that were true, it's not true, by the way, but if that were true, the only responsible way for him to handle that information as a journalist, he would know this, would be to quietly pass it off to an organization that does not have his conflicts.
Now, also in the interview, Tim is pushing Nuzzi to explain why, if before the election she had knowledge of RFK Jr., for example, not being sober, doing ketamine, possibly other drugs, why did she not go public with it as a journalist? Why did she stay quiet? She breaks into tears and asks to stop the interview at that point. But Bridget, let's first pause on that allegation of fan fiction / revenge porn. Do you think Lizza is veering into revenge porn territory? Is that coke?
What do you make of that? I haven't talked about any of these people. I hate all these people. They all deserve each other. I've managed to abstain from talking about it because the more I learn, the more I realize I don't have what it takes to make it in this industry. I find it rich that she's talking about journalistic integrity in this clip. Like, what? I'm sorry. None of you have journalistic integrity. None of you should ever work again. There are good people who are out there chasing down stories, getting pennies in local news and trying to be good journalists with ethics, and they will never have a fraction of the attention actually chasing down stories where there's, trying to like speak truth to power. And these people are the ones that rise to the top. And this is where I'm like, Ben's probably right. Cause it's truly just an attention economy now. It doesn't matter. You can just like sound like you're on 6 different drugs and be like, actually, it all makes a lot of sense too. If everyone in our media and journalists and all of our politicians are on drugs. This actually, all of America right now makes sense to me when I consider that everyone's just on drugs.
It's the drugs. It's the drugs. It's the only
everyone's on ketamine. That's the problem.
Do you think Bobby Kennedy's on ketamine? Is that like, to me, that actually doesn't seem, I don't know, it doesn't seem totally far-fetched. It's a serious allegation about the sitting Health and Human Services Secretary, but he also has a hugely demanding job in front of him.
Dude, but that's the thing, too, that everybody is, they're like, you said kind of, oh, this is like inside baseball and it doesn't really have that much bearing on anything. But yes and no, she is supposed to be running profiles for some of the most literally powerful policy informing people in our government. Mm-hmm. So the way that these things are presented to, normal people matters in things like elections. It matters to the policies that are getting made right now. It does matter. I mean, I would like to think that it matters. Otherwise, journalism is dead, which I think it actually is. And we can all just, wrap it up and become like, I guess I need to like send some pictures of my butthole to somebody and hope. I
still don't know if that was real. I don't know if that was real. She
has the confidence of someone who would send a picture of her butthole to somebody. I need just a fraction of her kind of confidence. I will say that.
That should actually be the measure that confidence is rated on, like on a scale of how confident are you on a scale of 0 to butthole selfie?
Sending a butthole selfie to someone. Yeah.
That's the new scale. No, you're right. I mean, I think it's helpful because on the one hand, it is all so trivial and silly and people are paying too much attention to it. But on the other hand, the fundamental question here is a really important one, which is, why was all of this happening? Why now? Is Ryan Lizza doing this? Why is Olivia Nuzzi doing this? What does it tell us about the man who is like actually leading a, as he would probably describe it, revolution of American health? Is an enormous job with enormous structural disruptions happening at this moment. I don't think the character questions, like he's a Kennedy. I think everyone probably assumed, based on his history and his family's history, that he was getting a little maybe side action in all likelihood, but. Other than that, I mean, is there something more? I mean, to your point, is there something that should reporters be asking Bobby Kennedy questions about what's raised by Olivia Nuzzi?
I mean, they should probably be asking him if he's on ketamine.
Seems like a good question.
And mushrooms or whatever. I mean, the Ryan stuff too is bothersome because once again, and I've seen this so much with journalists in the past 5 years or so, where they'll come out with a tell-all book about stuff that people were saying, normies often were saying, and then gaslit into believing wasn't true. And then they'll come out with a book and they'll be like, what we knew about Biden. It's
yes.
Like, well, shouldn't you have
effing
reported on this stuff when you knew it? Isn't that the whole thing about journalism, that you report these things when you learn them? You don't save them for your Substack you're going to drop to get back at your Because the revenge porn thing is weird because she's also writing about this.
Great point. That's a great point.
Like, what are you talking about? You wrote a book about this, so he doesn't get to tell his side of the story. By the way that his quotes read, clearly he was recording these conversations.
Liza, yeah.
It sounds like it. When you read them, I mean, as someone who's like done reporting, doesn't it read like transcription? No one is that clean at quotes unless it has a very like transcription cadence to it.
Right. Or he's polishing it afterwards in a way that takes away from what was actually said. But it sounds to me like he's really going off audio recordings. You're right.
Yeah, which is weird. And she was, can we talk about how it sounds like what she had this, was it a makeup artist? Who is the person who is doing the recording at Mar-a-Lago? Is that even legal? Like, how is this?
I know. Of the president.
That seems illegal.
Right.
That seems like it should be a big deal.
What Bridget is referring to here is an allegation from Liza that Nuzzie's friend was recording Trump and that Trump alluded to something in the Butler story. And neither of them are really saying what it is, but alluding to something in the Butler story being off. And here we just have two narcissists battling it out through, it's like the battle of the pretentious essay, going back and forth about what's like in the vaguest terms. Her novel, I don't think even ever names, her memoir, I don't think ever names Bobby Kennedy. It just refers to him as the politician. And I have to put this up on the screen, Bridget. You're going to like this one. I saw this post on X. Olivia Nuzzi is literally why everyone thinks we journalists are failed theater kids. It's so perfect. And then you go down. So some newsletter asked her just about her week, and Nuzzi sent the following bullet points. Your agent texts you unprompted and with no elaboration. I love you. Monica Lewinsky reaches out to check on your mental health. Frank Rich encourages you to send your book to Fran Lebowitz because, quote, she is not online.
Is this the list, too, that also included Mitchell Jackson told you to go to rehab?
Oh, my gosh, was it? Yes, yeah, I think it was.
She should have listened to him.
Should have listened.
She should have listened to him. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, that man knows his stuff. The weird thing, too, is, and this is what also bothers me, is that that also the Senator Mark, or whatever his name was, who was the other guy? The first one.
Mark Sanford, right.
Mark Sanford.
Yes, so
no one's talking to him.
Yep.
And also then Ryan Lizza had his, I really hate that I'm talking about this, but clearly I've been following it. He was like, oh, that redacted. And I think it was the third. Just say who it is. Don't bring it up if you're not going to say who it is.
Who's allegedly sleeping with Bobby Kennedy, right? That's what you're referring to?
Yes.
Right. Other mistresses, allegedly.
Why are you even bringing it up if you're going to redact it? All of these people deserve each other. I cannot stand any of them. I've been making fun of RFK forever. My audience hates it. They always get mad at me. I've lost followers for it. I was, that stupid poem that he wrote her was forced upon me.
Allegedly wrote her, but yeah, it does sound like something he would do.
I mean to squeeze your cheeks. Oh. To force open your mouth.
And I will not sleep tonight, Bridget. Is that will be haunting me?
I am a river. You are my canyon.
These are actually the alleged lines in the poem.
I'm sorry for everyone who didn't know about this.
I don't think you are sorry, but I also do think we should leave it there. I feel like we've gone too far. We've crossed the line. On a more serious note, the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression released new poll results today that are not
perfect segue. Free speech, really, guys.
Well, no, it is perfect in the respect that it shows how fried all of our brains are. Mm-hmm. Because we're just, it's hard to say it, or it's hard not to say it. We're just cooked. That's what it feels like right now.
Are we cooked, chat?
So FIRE found among students nationwide, nearly half say that the phrase, quote, words can be violence, either, quote, completely or mostly describes their thoughts. Now, this survey was also really interesting because it looked at results from Utah Valley University, where Charlie Kirk was tragically assassinated in September, before and after the event, and found, we can just start putting some of the results up on the screen, found some really interesting stuff. But I want to just start on that first bullet point, Bridget, about 48% of students nationwide saying words can be violence is either completely or mostly a description of their own thoughts.
That's crazy to me.
Right?
I have, these are just kids who, I don't know how, I'm 47 years old now, and I was bullied in real life and pushed around, and a girl threw me into a locker, and I got slapped in a bathroom in junior high. I learned pretty young what violence was. I just don't know if do these kids actually know what violence is? Did they define what violence is for them? Mm-hmm. Why do they think words are violence? And especially after there's been these kids have been exposed to so much actual violence. It's strange to me. Like, I don't understand how you would be able to hold that in your mind and also be the kind of generation of kids that grew up with all the political violence we've seen and school shootings and all of the actual literal violence around us and online all the time. What's your theory for why these kids think this? How old are the kids, by the way? They're like college kids?
Enrolled
Are they Gen Z
students.
or Gen Alpha?
They should still be Gen Z.
Okay.
I think for now they're still Gen Z, like the youngest cohort of Gen Z. When I think about why now this esoteric concept of speech as violence is getting traction with some 48% of college students, the only thing I can really explain it in my mind is that everything feels so much more abstract and fake if you're Gen Z, and things are just less tangible because your social life is on a screen. And it's less in person, in the flesh and blood. It's more pictures. So the pictures that you see of your friends, you're seeing those more often. You're seeing a FaceTime image more often than you're seeing a face. And it just gets easier to go from point A to point B, and to say that words can be real, tangible, kinetic violence when everything is kind of reduced to screens. I don't know. I don't know what you make of that.
That's interesting. I mean, a lot of these kids too, I wonder if they've been, bullied, if they've known people who have like taken their own lives because they were bullied online. They've grown up online and they've experienced a lot of real bully. Most of the kids I know went through some period or another where they were bullied online or ganged up online, or they had, and I'm sure that I'm sure you've experienced a pile on online, and I know I have, and it can feel very overwhelming. I wouldn't go so far as to say that it feels violent, but I also didn't grow up online, and I was bullied in real life. So if I had only been bullied online and had kids or friends who had wanted to take their life or maybe did, I don't know. I'm trying to come up with like my best faith interpretation I'm trying to understand, because my bad faith interpretation is that they're all pussies and somebody needs to just punch them in the face and then they'll learn the difference between violence and speech. And maybe like that, and also another bad faith is that erosion of speech and actual violence and that the line between them has been intentional, and it's particularly been intentional in academia, because I don't even know where all this like lame rhetoric came from. Like, where did it's all so academic, like speech is violence. It's not something that comes from like your buddy who works on a construction site. This is academic language.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely not coming from your buddy on the construction site. That is for sure. And of course, there's a poll of college students, so probably missing a lot of like blue collar Gen Z. But it's still obviously really important. I think maybe both of your explanations are correct, that they're pussies and they've seen like a lot of awful things happen on the internet, and then they connect speech to violence, maybe partially because of that. But something has to explain the rise, and because like this stuff has been going around academia for the 20th century. These esoteric concepts about words becoming actual violence, not becoming fuel for violence, but violence itself. That's been around in academia. So why is it where it is? Why is it at this high watermark? And I want to bring in this Atlantic story. This Atlantic story.
Because they're all special needs.
It is very vindicating to the Bridget Phetasy theory of the case, to say the least. So I'm going to read from it a little bit here. Accommodations in higher education were supposed to help disabled Americans enjoy the same opportunities as everyone else. No one should be kept from taking a class because they are physically unable to enter the building where it's taught. For example, over the past decade and a half, however, the share of students at selective universities who qualify for accommodations, often extra time on tests, has grown at a breathtaking pace. So listen to these numbers. At the University of Chicago, the number has more than tripled over the past 8 years. At UC Berkeley, it has nearly quintupled over the past 15 years. The increase is driven by more young people getting diagnosed with conditions such as ADHD, anxiety, and depression, and by universities making the process of getting accommodations easier. The change, and this is a very interesting point as well, has occurred disproportionately at the most prestigious and expensive institutions. At Brown and Harvard, more than 20% of undergraduates are registered as disabled. It's hard not to laugh at that because we damn well know that 15% of them are not disabled in the literal sense. They have, I'll just keep reading so we get the rest of this here. The most academically successful students, The Atlantic says, also have the largest share of students with a disability that could prevent them from succeeding academically. Make that make sense, Bridget. Greg Lukianoff and Jonathan Haidt wrote The Coddling of the American Mind. I think that was 10 years ago. I think that book came out in 2015-ish, and predicted where this was going, and that we were seeing so much of this at elite schools. Same things with gender identity. A lot of this was happening at elite schools. I think this is vindicating to your theory of the case.
I also don't think it's that surprising that elite kids have shortcuts and workarounds to getting extra time and getting their way into Harvard or Brown. Oh my gosh. Elite children have learned how to work the system? News at 11. Like, what? Yeah, they've been doing this forever, and it's not. What's surprising is that it got so bad that they had to write an Atlantic article about it, reporting on the numbers. And this was bound to happen, because if you were going to allow cry closets and safe spaces in these colleges, where you started excusing people from school a decade ago when Trump got elected because they emotionally couldn't handle it, obviously kids are going to start going, well, I have test anxiety and I can't, and the pressure makes me nervous and I am depressed because we live in a Donald Trump administration, and so that distracts me. I need more time on my test. Like, obviously, kids are going to work the system. This is also just what like teenagers and kids do.
Well, and this is where again I'm torn, like, because I think a lot of them actually see themselves as disabled, and they don't see, like, they're not in on the joke, like they're not in on the grift. The Operation Varsity Blues stuff obviously had some of this in it, and there were like efforts to just like buy these kinds of privileges. But I actually also, I don't know, am I wrong? I genuinely think some of them really see themselves as disabled because they have an anxiety disorder, and therefore they should register at the school as disabled. They should be treated the same as kids in wheelchairs. Just on that point, this is a professor talking to The Atlantic who, quote, requested anonymity because he doesn't have tenure, who said, you hear students with disabilities and it's not kids in wheelchairs. It's just not. It's rich kids getting extra time on tests. Even
you're
as
not disabled, you're retarded.
you going to sell merch that says that?
At college campuses.
You send it over to Tim Walz from Donald Trump. Okay. But I think some of them really believe it. I don't think it's just rich kids being like, hey, mom and dad, buy me this fake thing. I think some of them I think many of them just actually see themselves as like special and disabled.
No, you're right. I actually do think that they've been This is something actually I've been saying for a long time because I worked with they weren't autistic. They were just like the only way to explain it in LA was I worked with a population of kids that were spoiled retarded. And they were like completely their parents did them this disservice. They were just so spoiled and coddled. And that they were they were helpless, basically. They didn't have any problem solving skills. They didn't need executive functioning. Mm-hmm. And so I do think you're right. And they did identify deeply with their whatever, like, long list of, diagnoses that they received from every hot shot. They were all on like 6 or 7 different meds. I mean, I think especially this population in particular comes from they probably are like online bragging about how many different disorders they have.
And this is where it also gets me because I don't love any, like, I understand people's skepticism about the panic over big tech and that sort of thing. I do, though, think we are more sedentary. We are, like, there are all these big changes to human life that have happened over the last, 100 years, let alone the last 10 years, that are making all of us mentally ill. Yeah. Now, so some of these kids, I think, are really suffering. It doesn't mean that they're disabled. I do think they're really suffering. So yes. I'm still trying to split that hair too here.
Yeah, and that's where I do try to have my good faith interpretation of this. I don't know. It's tough with that. It's tough with that population because you had all those scandals. Remember, not too long ago, even in California, with the famous people who are like buying their kids into the elite universities. So the elite will do anything to make sure that their progeny if they went to Harvard, they're going to make sure their kid goes to Harvard. Mm-hmm. Even if I feel like a lot of the time they're in on it together. It seems like a lot of the time they're like, hey, you have ADHD, wink, wink, because I know you're not actually smart enough to get into Harvard, but you are a Harvard kid.
Like, you couldn't finish Harry Potter 5. We all know this is ADHD. Take the pill, accept your fate.
Take the pill, accept your fate, and tell Harvard that so that you can get extra time on your tests. Right. and get through it or get into it. But I also do think the kids are suffering, yes, and the adults are suffering too.
Good point.
Because it is true. Do you know John Popola from Dad Saves America? He had this woman on his most recent episode, and she was talking about why our brains are not wired to handle like the modern social media, essentially what's going on. And I was joking about this recently just because I changed where the silverware drawer in my kitchen is. And I had it in one place for 2 years. And I'm like, this doesn't make sense. It shouldn't be here. So I switched it. And the number of times that I just automatically went to where the old drawer was, I was like, why do we think that we're going to be able to outsmart millions of years of evolution in a decade with all this new technology? It's not a good combination. And now you have, and it is actually crazy to me that they just launched AI with no guardrails into the whole population. It's crazy to me. Yes. Nothing. It's actually crazy. And we're all like, well, I guess that's got to happen now. And it's like, people are literally getting psychosis. Everyone I know is having arguments with their ChatGPT. They're telling me about this. I'm like, don't tell me about this. I don't want to know that you do this with your ChatGPT.
Yes. And Peter Thiel's like, if you regulate it, you are the Antichrist.
Yeah.
Well, maybe, question mark. No, I think that's all a good point. By the way, though, I think we would both agree on this. Brett Weinstein and Heather Hying have called this hyper-novelty. I think that's a good description of what's happening. Life being hard and new and unfair also is not an excuse to be a baby.
Yeah, no.
Get over it.
I mean, this is another thing I constantly say in Dumpster Fire, where I have a lot of compassion for the young people. I understand their suffering when they talk about things like, oh, we can't get a house. I'm also like, yeah, but nobody owes you. Like, I didn't grow up thinking America owed me a house, you know?
Well, that's where you went wrong, Bridget.
Clearly, that and not showing a politician a picture of my butthole.
You've made so many mistakes. Speaking of people who have made mistakes, speaking of buttholes, let's talk about Ellen DeGeneres.
Oh,
Ellen
man.
DeGeneres is moving back to the United States. She is returning triumphantly. Well, actually, not triumphantly. The Daily Mail has the story that Ellen and Portia are putting their UK home up for sale after making a very big deal about leaving the United States. Here's a quote from a source to the Mail about Ellen. She's been telling friends they're coming home soon because they miss them and can't take the winters over there. And Portia wants to act again. They will be here for the holidays and longer by the sound of it. They lived in freaking Montecito. Why did they ever go to the United Kingdom and think that was permanent?
This is also my favorite thing ever. And that quote, I'm glad you read that quote, because I was like, this is your values are like, they stop your, fascism, we're leaving because of this fascist dictator. And they're like, we miss our friends and it's cold here. Never mind.
It's so true.
We'll put up with the fascism.
This is Ellen saying, quote, we got here to the UK the day before the election and woke up to lots of texts from our friends with crying emojis. And I was like, he got in. And we're like, we're staying here. No, you're not. No, you're not. You want the beach.
You want that sweet. Has anyone been to Montecito? It is paradise there.
The best.
It is the best. I could have. I actually am kind of surprised they lasted as long as they did, and I'm sure it's only because they knew they'd get so much crap for going back.
No,
they're like, it's a fascist. Right. We can't handle this oppressive regime. And then they have one winter in the UK and they're like, but Portia needs, I love the quotes too. They sound so insufferable. It's like, it's so Portia needs her horses.
Yeah. It's like Downton Abbey outtakes. Well, that's the other funny thing. Portia needs to work, so they have to go back to Montecito because, Bridget, as we know, nobody ever succeeds at acting in the United Kingdom. No. You cannot work there. There's no jobs.
No, there's no jobs. There's not going to be any jobs for anyone soon, but
true.
Probably within like 2 to 5 years.
I'm going to force you to talk about Sabrina Carpenter because you're such a great writer on the topic of sex. And Sabrina Carpenter has a new interview out with Variety that is getting some attention. Here's the quote that caught my eye from Variety. While much of Carpenter's lyricism is unabashedly horny, it's also clever, and she's far from being the only celebrity making jokes about sex. Yeah, no kidding. So the backlash initially came as a surprise. Quote, I think it wouldn't matter so much if I wasn't a childhood figure for some people, Carpenter says, now a dozen years past her breakout role on Disney Channel's Girl Meets World. But I also can't really help that. It's not my fault that I got a job when I was 12 and you won't let me evolve. Now, this goes on to say she also knows from her own childhood, which wasn't so long ago, that her young fans have the capacity to glean from her lyrics what makes sense for them and figure out the rest later. She remembers looking up to female artists who happened to sing about sex when she was younger, and doesn't feel that they influenced her to grow up any faster than she should have. I always thought when I grow up, then I'd get to embrace my sexuality more. I don't even know what that means yet. I don't think they do. I wish I'd had more conversations about all of it while I was younger, but people feel too scared to talk about it. This is a similar story, Bridget, to what we were just talking about, what we've been talking about all show, in that I kind of see what she's saying, and then I absolutely don't see what she's saying.
I was listening to Like a Prayer when I was 11 years old. Like, God, who cares? Where is this backlash coming from? I don't understand. I don't understand, like, who's getting mad at her exactly? Her fans?
Presumably not her fans. presumably random people that would be upset with her anyway. This is the algorithm. It all comes back to the Ben Shapiro clip we played.
It's not real. But this is like, what did 10 people on Twitter say? Oh, your lyrics are too horny for a child star. Like, I don't understand what her like, what is this backlash that she's experiencing? Is it even real? And also, young people are mad that she's talking about sex.
Well,
I mean, do you know the stuff that the raps that I knew by heart when I was 14, 15 years old? Mm-hmm. Doggy Style came out when I was 15 years old, and I knew every word on that album.
That just happened to be about sex. That wasn't intentional. It's just that the sexual theme just happened into the poetry of the lyrics.
And did it make me a slut? Maybe.
Well, see, this is one of your most viral takes. Should you have connected the dots initially between that song? Yes, if people haven't followed Bridget, that really was that has to be one of your all-time most viral pieces.
Oh, which one? I Regret Being a Slut?
Yeah, that's gotta be up there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely.
No regrets, though. Scotty P.
I mean, maybe it was ODB all along.
No, I mean... But see, what's funny about this is it's not what Sabrina Carpenter is saying. Sabrina Carpenter is like doing this thing, which I find very interesting from like a Gen Z pop star. Billie Eilish has talked about dressing kind of androgynously because she grew up with a lot of exposure to porn and like Instagram models, and it made her so self-conscious that she went in the opposite direction, covered her body, and tried to make it so that nobody would even think about or talk about how she looked. Then you have Sabrina Carpenter, I guess Sydney Sweeney too, who are like completely opposite and still really popular. So I just don't know. I think Gen Z is incredibly confused.
Pop star shows off her body for attention. News at 11. I mean, these are not new things. We grew up with Britney Spears, and she turned out great.
Things are going well. Things have never been better. Yeah. This stuff I think maybe does really, this is actually serious. Like now that you said that, I think it actually does get to the ways that the normalization and conditioning can mess people up, whether you're famous or not. I remember this BuzzFeed article that I think about a lot because it was a Gen Z girl in like 2019 or 2020. And the BuzzFeed headline was like, Gen Z is souring on sex positivity. And the girl in the story, she was a rape victim. And she said, HBO did a number on me, and she was talking about Sex and the City and girls. And so to some extent, it's sort of amusing to hear Sabrina Carpenter act like she's the first female pop star who came out of the Disney world who's ever dealt with this quote unquote controversy about just being too sexual, quote, unabashedly horny, according to Variety. But on the other hand, it's like, well, maybe the reason that your generation is messed up and confused is actually because you're just continuing what's happened all along.
Well, good thing that person who wrote that article never got to Euphoria. It should have been really messed up.
Dropped out.
It's interesting because another thing that you had kind of on your docket was like the Ariana Grande. And I've been thinking a lot about what I grew up with in terms of the models. And I definitely grew up with like the hair. Well, first the supermodels, which I just felt like they were powerful goddesses who could do anything. And it was actually inspiring to me. And then they all turned kind of heroin chic, and that got weird. And there are those clips from like my generation where it's someone is like a size 4 and it's the America's like top model or whatever.
America's Next Top Model, and Tyra is Tyra. Yeah,
she's like shaming her for being obese. She's like, "What's it like to be morbidly obese?" You know, she's like a size 4. And I remember that you're saying Britney was very fat, so we grew up with a lot of that. I'm sure I internalized a lot of it. I look at, though, even my grandmother, she was obsessed with staying. She was like Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, you know, taking her measurements, and I come from a long line of, I think, pretty healthy fat shaming, and it's not something that's unique to my generation. It's not something that's unique to even my grandmother's generation. Although I think we made some progress in being able to openly talk about it, address it. We overcorrected completely to body positivity being like, oh, now we're, being morbidly obese that's healthy. That's where we went with it.
The picture of America. Yeah, it's the picture of health.
And then we went, now what's interesting is you have somebody like Ariana Grande who has kind of a history of eating disorders. And she is weaponizing that and saying, you guys can't body shame me, which is, truly manipulative and also kind of brilliant because she's taking this. She knows the language and she knows how to use it to deflect the criticism that she's now wasting away publicly. And we're all just supposed to be like, oh, that's cool. You're just dying in front of us, I guess. All right.
Right. And if we say anything, it's body shaming.
Yeah, we're body shaming you. No, right. we're and actually acting like it's the same thing as what people do to people who are obese is not really fair of her either. Like she knows there's a difference between what people are saying about her and what people say to people who are overweight online. I would hope she knows the difference. And then if you go down these rabbit holes like I do at 2:00 in the morning when I can't sleep, you find out that there's like a whole cohort of women who grew up with Ariana Grande and they all were on this kind of like anorexia, eating disorder, Tumblr phase where all these women were, and they were kind of in very coded language competing with each other. And so her getting extremely skinny is really triggering a lot of women who developed eating disorders from a lot of these young women back in the day on Tumblrs. Again, we're not making a great case for social media on this podcast.
We are not. But you know what? As evil as much of a scourge Tumblr was on the human psyche, I think it might be better than TikTok.
Yeah, maybe. Although they're also over there kind of worrying about Ariana and her. Yeah, it's weird. Like the whole like competitive anorexia relationship thing that when you like start researching that stuff and if you know about it or you know it, personally, I can see why people are observing this and they're like, hey, this is messed up. What's going on here? And I don't want a whole other generation of women to have to like see all these Ozempic stars who tossed out body positivity in the trash immediately the minute Ozempic came on the scene. Like all the ones who were for it, it just... Yeah,
There's Amy Schumer up on the screen.
Perfect example.
Lizzo's a good one. Yep.
Yeah, it was all cope. It was all
I was just
going
to say that. You took the words right out of my mouth. It was. The whole time it was cope. And understandable cope, by the way. Because
understandable. Yeah.
The same reason that we were talking about social media and Gen Z. I mean, I feel for, like, all of us. We are swimming in, like, a toxic environment, like a toxic nutritional environment. The same way we're swimming in a toxic information environment. But, yeah, their moral credibility is slightly diminished.
But I don't want the like girls to have to feel like they need to look like that either. Just look, but man, that even like body dysmorphia, I still struggle with it. It's not, I luckily somehow escaped eating disorders, and it's probably just because I did a lot of cocaine.
That's the LA, like the people who don't have eating disorders in LA have cocaine problems.
But they can't even do that anymore because it's all laced with fentanyl.
That's what the cartels.
And now I'm turning on myself. Now I am like, you know what, Gen Z, you do have it worse.
Yeah, maybe it's everything is bad. There you go. Just land on that.
But and yet, things have never been better. Because I had to go to a weed dealer who would play his guitar and flirt with me and make me listen to his dumb songs for hours before I could get my weed. He was like James Franco in
Pineapple Express. Yeah, they will never know. You couldn't make that movie today because it would be like a Snapchat dealer.
Yeah, exactly. Or it'd just be delivered.
Yeah.
Or you just go to a store.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's another tragedy we'll have to address another time. Bridget Phetasy. This has been so much fun.
We
Bridget
covered
is
a lot of ground.
Arguably too much ground. Bridget is host of Dumpster Fire. You can find her on Substack at Beyond Parody with Bridget Phetasy. And hopefully you'll be able to find her back on the show if we can convince her to spend another hour talking about covering too much ground, all of that good stuff.
Emily, it has been an absolute pleasure. I love you. Please come on Walk-Ins. Welcome, and we can laugh and joke again. And thank you and your audience for having me. This has been so much fun.
Of course. Thank you, Bridget. I hope to see you back here soon. Appreciate it. Now, we do have a little bit of show left, so don't go anywhere. First, I have to talk about my favorite chips. Have you ever taken a look at the nutrition label? We were just talking about this on the show. We're swimming in a toxic nutritional environment. And if you look at those labels, you'll find a chemical cocktail, seed oils, MSG, artificial dyes, vague, natural flavors, and ingredients that sound more like a science experiment than a snack. Vandy Crisps are part of the growing movement to bring back real food. Vandy Crisps contain just 3 ingredients: 100% pesticide-free potatoes, sea salt, and 100% grass-fed beef tallow. That's it, and they taste incredible. I love them. My favorite flavor of Vandy is Smokehouse Barbecue. I really love them all, but I especially love Smokehouse Barbecue. If you love Vandy, then you'll also love masa chips. My favorite flavor of masa, I always am going back and forth on this. I love churro. I love lime. I also love all of them. So if you're ready to give Vandy or masa a try, use code AFTERPARTY for 25% off your first order at vandycrisps.com or masachips.com, or simply click the link in the video description or scan the QR code to claim this delicious offer. Don't feel like ordering online? Vandy and masa are now available nationwide at your local Sprouts supermarket. Stop by and pick up a couple of bags before they're gone. All right, before we leave tonight, I have to bring you this story from Dropsite. This is F20. We can put it up on the screen. This is a new post that reveals more about a story that mattered a lot to me personally back in 2020, because one of the groups implicated in this new Dropsite report was targeting the Federalist when I worked at the Federalist. And we've come to find out, thanks to Dropsite's reporting, and it's actually an excerpt from a book by author Paul Holden. Paul Holden reports in The Fraud, Keir Starmer, Morgan McSweeney, and the Crisis of British Democracy that Starmer's chief of staff, and I'll just read the lead paragraph here. Starmer's chief of staff is named Morgan McSweeney, so keep that in mind. Paul Holden writes, as Keir Starmer rose to power in Britain, the political machine responsible for his rise ran a behind-the-scenes campaign to demonetize the U.S. news outlet Breitbart. The attacks on Breitbart were part of a targeted campaign against media outlets on both the left and right considered hostile to the centrist faction of the Labour Party, according to a trove of documents that expose the operation. So, where Holden goes with this is basically that McSweeney started a group. It was resourced by a think tank called Labour Together, so obviously related to the Labour Party, and as Paul writes, quote, under the guise of fighting misinformation and fake news. Between 2018 and 2020, according to Holden, the anodyne-seeming think tank received about £740,000 in donations that it failed to report, that's another fun part of the story, to the UK Electoral Commission, and then Labour Together was found guilty and fined back in September 2021 for the offense. Morgan McSweeney is now, again, PM Keir Starmer's chief of staff, very powerful position right now, managing director of Labour Together at that time. And so Paul Holden writes, the prominent UK journalist in 2024 commented that Morgan McSweeney held the position, quote, of unparalleled power in Labour Party history. So Ryan was telling me about this story. Ryan Grimm obviously oversees a lot of Dropsite, and he's telling me about this story, and I'm like, wait a second. Are you going to say that this had something to do with the Center for Countering Digital Hate? Because as he was describing the reporting, we were about to talk about it on Breaking Points this morning. He was describing the reporting to me, and I was like, I stopped him before he said the Center for Countering Digital Hate. And he was like, yes, I think that is part of the story. So I'm looking into this and I'm like, the CCDH, funny enough, I'm very familiar with the CCDH. Take a look at this. This is a report in the Federalist in 2020. It's a recap of NBC's failed attempt to deplatform the Federalist on Google. If you go through the story, you can find it on the internet, but it will get you up to speed. This is again from 2020. NBC reported, the story says, that Google took action based on its work with the United Kingdom's, quote, Center for Countering Digital Hate that alleged Federalist reporting, which exposed legacy media's deceptive coverage of recent civil unrest, violated company guidelines. How hours after NBC's initial dispatch, however, Google released a statement contradicting NBC's claims and claiming that the tech giant had threatened sanctions on the Federalist, not for its journalism, but for content in its comment sections, which the website has temporarily disabled, but has promised will be back. All right, let's just stop right there. You just heard the craziest cocktail of things happening in one story. A journalist was uncritically laundering a BS NGO's report about other journalists to a big tech company to suppress those journalists. So this was Ben Collins, who was like the misinformation at NBC News at the time. He is the boyfriend of Kat Abugazaleh in Chicago, who's like throwing herself in front of ICE vehicles in protest. But Ben Collins went and took this report from what we now know was a Keir Starmer labor op, a foreign operation that was trying to change the boundaries of free speech in the United States of America, where we are by no means perfect, but we have a way superior system to what goes on in the United Kingdom. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They are trying to come in, and Ben Collins, a journalist, does their work for them so very eagerly, gladly launders their little white paper, takes it to a big tech company. Again, as a reminder, journalists are supposed to be skeptical, hostile to concentrated power, whether that's our government, a foreign government, or a big tech company. And here's Ben Collins saying, Google, I have information, and you must take action. Now, of course, he didn't put it that way, but he knew damn well what he was doing. He was threatening to report that Google was just going to allow the disinformation machine of the Federalist to keep running rampant. Just keep spewing disinformation out into the universe if it didn't take action. And so he was going to blast them on NBC News. That's exactly what was happening. We all know it. And come to find out, that report Collins uncritically laundered about Google taking action against someone else's comment section, which is hilarious because of the YouTube comment section that Google itself oversees, to demonetize the Federalist at the time could have easily put us out of business. It could have easily wiped out all of the coverage that the Federalist then did. When you go back and look at it, and I was an editor there at the time, so I'm intimately familiar with a lot of that reporting on COVID, a lot of that reporting on Biden, a lot of that reporting on many things that we were told nobody could talk about during the pandemic that have since been completely vindicated over and over again. All of that could have gone away if it was like Jim Jordan and some others who rallied and said, Google, what are you doing? And it had a resolution. The Federalist comment section came back and all of that. But this story now shows that basically NBC News was doing the work of a foreign government. And maybe could have dug a little deeper at who was funding this group, by the way. I maybe asked around, been like, this seems a little iffy. Is this like a labor op? And figured out that it was irresponsible. It's irresponsible either way to demand that other journalists be suppressed and to demand massive technology companies censor journalists as a journalist. I mean, it's such a disgusting thing to do that is completely anathema to the profession. And it was this, I remember people cheerleading this in the quote mainstream media at the time that it happened. And now Dropsite reporting from Paul Holden here is showing that they were going after, this is a foreign political party, secretly at the time, going after trying to narrow the boundaries of acceptable discourse in the United States. How dare they? And how dare a reporter help them do that without asking enough questions at the time? I get that they were trying to hide their funding. Seems like it would have been, you just don't write that story. It seems pretty obvious that if your reporter comes to you with this story, you just don't write the story. Or maybe you actually dig deeper and you find the story is that labor is running an op to silence people in the United States and narrow the boundaries of acceptable speech in the United States. Maybe you would have stumbled on to that pearl of a story before DropSite ran it in 2025. Maybe you could have had that in 2020. That would have been fun, wouldn't it? I'm waiting to see, honestly, if Donald Trump comments on this story, because again, we're talking about a very powerful person in the United Kingdom, directly implicated in this, not just the prime minister, but the prime minister's chief of staff. So I think there's more to see. There's more to come on this particular story, but I had to talk about it because that instance, 2020 was a crazy year, but journalists after 2016 were steadily building up to that fever pitch by demanding, for example, corporations boycott Laura Ingraham and Tucker Carlson and boycott Fox News. What's the implication of that? It's a corporation saying, or it's a journalist saying, I want the corporation to act to limit these other media figures' speech. I want them, it's whether or not you like the speech. The fact of the matter is you had journalists being like, Pfizer is boycotting Laura Ingraham's program because she was mean to LeBron James. Whatever you think of what's being said, the idea of journalists cheerleading corporations to punish other journalists is just so ridiculous. And I feel like we've sort of come out of that moment. But I also feel like we could snap back into it at any time. So great reporting here from DropSite. Had to talk about it on today's show. It is a memory that is indelible in my hippocampus. All right. That does it for us tonight. We have had a lot of fun. Send an email to emily@devilmaycaremedia.com and make sure to subscribe so that you get happy hour in your podcast feed. Subscribe on YouTube to catch all of our videos, and we will be back here next Monday with more After Party. See you then, everyone.